Our first lesson this morning is taken from the book of Exodus. We've been following the journey of the children of Israel. Having been slaves in Egypt, the Lord has provided them a means of escape. They've left Egypt. They've crossed over the waters of what's called the Red Sea that parted before them. The Egyptians were drowned behind them, and now they find themselves in a desert. There's no cities or towns. There's nothing developed. They're just wandering through an area that people don't travel through on a regular basis. And yet there are various people that live in those desert places. And this story is about one of those people. The people thirsted for water, and they complained to Moses. They said, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" The Lord had told Moses to strike a rock. So Moses continues later in this chapter saying, "Behold, I will stand before you on the rock of Horeb." And the Lord tells Moses, "You shall strike the rock, and water shall come from it, that the people may drink." And so Moses did this in the sight of the elders. Now, Amalek, that's a tribe of people, came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some men to go out tomorrow and fight with Amalek, for tomorrow I shall stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses said, and he fought with the Amalekites. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur, they went up to the top of the hill. And so it was when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. But when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands became heavy. So they took a stone and they put it under him, and he sat upon it, and Aaron and Hur each sat on either side. And they supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. So Joshua defeated the Amalekites and his people with the edge of the sword. Amen. I have a rod to demonstrate the visual idea of someone, anyone, but we're talking about Moses holding a rod up. And how long do you think you could do this? You know, we see people, perhaps you yourself, do some exercises. You see people that have weights on the end of a rod, not made out of wood like this one. And they lift it, and they hold it, and they put it down, they lift it again for exercise, to strengthen their muscles. How long could you hold up even your hands without something in them? You think, I could do that all day long. So remember, Moses was old, older than me. And he's holding his hands up, and it said his hands became heavy. Tried to hold them up, but his hands felt heavier and heavier. So he had Aaron, his brother, and Hur, another warrior. The name of this man is Hur, beside him. And it said they took a rock, and I don't have a rock to bring out, but bring out something to sit on. They brought out a rock, they put Moses on the rock, and they each stood on either side of Moses and held his hands up. And oftentimes we think of them also holding the rod, but it says they held his hands. So you can imagine somebody holding your wrists as you're holding up something. They're helping you. And as long as Moses could hold up his hands, it said the children of Israel prevailed in the battle against the Amalekites. So he had support. He had support. And I brought out this stool because it's a great illustration of support. Can you see the legs here? That support the stool. As a matter of fact, if you look around in life, you'll see everything has a foundation that supports it and holds it up. I'm going to point out over here these parts of the Holy Supper rail. There's a support. It's kind of like a leg, like a stool. And it runs all the way along on either side of the Holy Supper rail. So when people come up to take Holy Supper, they have support, something holding up that surface where my copy of the Word is resting. Of course, our legs are our supports. They hold up the rest of our body. And when we're wanting to do something that takes some kind of energy that comes directly from our minds, different than walking, we want to use our hands to do something like holding up a rod. Then our hands become supports. But what if our own supports get weak? Then you know what we need? We need people to help us. We need people to support us. Have you heard that phrase before? People will say, I need some support here. I need some support. I need some help. Moses had support. He was the great leader of these people, but he couldn't handle everything all by himself. Nobody can. And it's a good thing to remind ourselves, as competent, as good as we are at doing things, nobody can do everything all by themselves without getting tired. Everybody needs support. You need support. Your friends need support. And support wouldn't necessarily be the physical holding up of something, although that could be part of it. And it's one of the reasons why we're especially missing sports, because during sports, when you have a team working together, the team players are supporting each other. They're encouraging each other. When somebody comes up to bat at baseball, or they're taking some shots at basketball or soccer or at hockey, their teammates are supporting them, cheering them on. You can do it. We all need that kind of support. And right now, during this pandemic, it can be easy to think, oh, I can handle this. It's not hard. I can't do everything I want to do, but, we need to support each other. We need to say, how are you doing to our friends? Do you miss going to school the way you used to? Do you miss not having to wear a mask all the time? Are you getting frustrated with this or that? We have to watch ourselves. The Amalekites stand for the kind of thoughts that come to us that make us want to tease other people, make us want to be lacking in our support and love for other people. They stand for a kind of enemy that comes into our minds and hearts that wants to secretly destroy other people. When you gossip and you talk about other people behind their back, that's the Amalekites, spiritually speaking. When you're thinking about how you can do better than somebody else and show them up so that they don't look so good, that's the Amalekites sneaking in and telling you you should hurt that other person by looking better than them. Whenever anybody wants to bully somebody else, that, spiritually speaking, is like the Amalekites. It doesn't talk about it in the lesson I read, but the way the Amalekites would attack people wasn't right up front. They would wait for people to pass by them, and then they'd sneak in. They'd sneak in and they'd pick off the people that were straggling at the end or around the outside. They would go for the weak or the young, and they would rob them. Not when there's a big challenge. No, they pick on people that were weaker than them. And that's why later on in the stories, the Lord tells the leaders of Israel, you've got to get rid of these people altogether. Can't just leave a little bit of them around because they multiply. It's kind of like a little idea in our head. I can be a little bit nasty, right? No, you've got to get rid of that Amalekite idea right away. So they're kind of spiritual bandits, spiritual robbers, thieves, that when we're getting tired, things seem, they say, you don't need support. Go ahead, do it on your own. It's okay. You don't need anybody else's help. You're going to be just fine. Don't ask for any help. That's a weak person that does that. That's the Amalekites. Moses could have said, I can do it all on my own. No, he needed support, and he got support. When you're feeling down or you're feeling like saying something you know you really shouldn't, and you want to do it, that's the Amalekites speaking. We call it evil spirits. And we need support from one another against the Amalekites, like Moses needed support. We need help from each other. Amen.